Your eyes open before the alarm. Again. The heaviness sits on your chest like a stone. You slept 8 hours, maybe 9, but your body feels like it's been awake for days. There's this fog in your head that coffee can't touch. Your thoughts move through mud. Every task feels like you're dragging weight uphill, and by noon, you're already counting the hours until you can collapse back into bed. But you know the truth. Sleep doesn't fix this anymore. You think the problem is sleep quality, blue light blockers, magnesium, a colder room. But here's what no one tells you. You're not tired because you're not sleeping enough. You're tired because your energy is leaking out in ways you can't see. Modern science chases symptoms. Ancient wisdom closed the leak. 2,000 years ago, a Taoist monk named Wei Boyang discovered something that doctors today still don't understand. He called it Jing, your life battery, and he wrote that most people drain it completely by age 30, then spend the rest of their lives running on fumes. His secret wasn't about sleeping more. It was about stopping the silent hemorrhage of energy that happens every single day. And it starts with something you're doing right now. Wei Boyang wasn't always a monk. Before he withdrew to the mountains, he was a physician in the imperial court, respected, accomplished, but exhausted in ways that terrified him. He would treat nobles who couldn't understand why, despite their wealth and comfort, they felt hollow, drained. He'd prescribe herbs, acupuncture, dietary changes. Sometimes they'd improve for a week, then the heaviness would return. But the worst part? Wei Boyang saw the same emptiness in his own reflection. He slept on silk, ate the finest foods, had servants to handle every burden, and yet every morning he woke up feeling like his soul had been run out overnight. He tried everything: meditation at dawn, rigorous exercise, fasting. He worked harder at resting than he'd ever worked at anything. He tried to discipline his way into energy, to control his way into peace, and it only made him more tired. This is the trap you're in right now. You're treating tiredness like a problem you can solve with more effort, more optimization. You track your sleep cycles, you buy the right pillow, you cut out sugar, alcohol, screens before bed. You're doing everything right, and you're still exhausted. Because you're still operating from the same broken assumption Wei Boyang had, that you can force your body into energy the way you force yourself through a workday. You can't. Energy doesn't respond to force, it responds to flow. And everything in your modern life is teaching you to block that flow. Your job demands constant output. Your phone demands constant attention. Your own mind demands constant problem solving. You're a river trying to run uphill, and you wonder why you're dry. Wei Boyang spent 3 years like this. 3 years of trying harder, sleeping worse, feeling emptier. Until one night, something inside him broke. Not collapsed, broke open. He left the palace. He left his position, his reputation, his entire identity, and he walked into the mountains with nothing but a question: what am I doing wrong? He wandered for weeks, sleeping in caves, drinking from streams, and slowly the noise in his head began to quiet. Not because he was meditating, not because he was disciplined, but because there was nothing left to control. One morning, he sat by a waterfall and watched the water move. It didn't struggle. It didn't force. It simply fell, following the path of least resistance, and in doing so, it carved through solid stone. He watched for hours. The water never tired. It never hesitated. It just flowed. And then he understood. That afternoon, he met an old hermit living in a hut made of bamboo and clay. The man was ancient, maybe 70, maybe 90, but his eyes were clear. His movements were effortless. He radiated something Wei Boyang had forgotten existed: aliveness. Wei Boyang asked him, "How do you have so much energy?" The hermit smiled. "I don't have energy. I stop losing it." Wei Boyang didn't understand. "But you must do something. Herbs, practices, breathing techniques?" The hermit shook his head. "You're still thinking like a physician. You think energy is something you create, but you were born with all the energy you'll ever need, a full reservoir. The problem is the holes." "What holes?" "The ones you punch into yourself every day." The hermit explained it like this: every human is born with 3 treasures: Jing, your essence, your life battery; Qi, your vitality, the energy that moves through you; and Shen, your spirit, the light in your eyes. These 3 are connected. When you waste Jing, your Qi weakens. When your Qi weakens, your Shen dims. And when your Shen dims, you feel what you feel right now: tired, empty, like you're living behind glass. "So how do I stop wasting Jing?" asked Wei Boyang. The hermit pointed to a tree branch swaying in the wind. "Do you see that branch forcing itself to move?" "No." "Do you see it resisting the wind?" "No." That's Wu Wei, non-forcing, non-resistance. The branch moves when the wind blows. It rests when the wind stops. It doesn't decide when to be strong. It doesn't try to prove anything. And because of that, it never breaks. It never tires. Wei Boyang stared at the branch. "But I'm not a tree. I have responsibilities, decisions, people depending on me." "And that's why you're exhausted," said the hermit quietly. "You think life is something you have to make happen, so you grip, you push, you clench every muscle in your body trying to control outcomes. And all that gripping, that's the leak. Every time you force something that wants to unfold naturally, you drain your Jing. Every time you resist what is, you burn Qi. Every time you lie to yourself about how you feel, you dim your Shen." The hermit leaned closer. "You want to know the secret? Stop trying so hard. Not because effort is bad, but because most of your effort is fighting reality instead of working with it." Wei Boyang felt something crack open in his chest. He thought about all the nights he'd lain awake trying to force himself to sleep, all the mornings he'd bullied himself out of bed, all the hours he'd spent pretending to have energy he didn't have, wearing a mask of competence while his insides screamed for rest. "So what do I do?" asked Wei Boyang. "You learn to feel the current, and you stop swimming against it." "In the mountains." Not forever, but long enough to unlearn what the world had taught him. He stopped trying to sleep. Instead, when he was tired, he rested. When he wasn't, he didn't force it. Some nights he slept 3 hours, some nights 10. His body remembered its own rhythm when he stopped imposing a schedule on it. He stopped trying to be productive. Instead, he paid attention to when his energy naturally rose and fell. He noticed he had clarity in the morning, so that's when he studied. He had physical energy in the afternoon, so that's when he gathered firewood. He had nothing in the evening, so he sat by the fire and stared at the flames. He stopped feeling guilty about it. He stopped trying to control his thoughts. When anxiety came, he let it move through him like weather. When sadness came, he let it rain. He stopped treating his emotions like problems to fix and started treating them like messages to hear. And slowly, they stopped screaming. The hermit taught him practices, not to gain energy, but to conserve it. Simple things: breathing that didn't force the breath, movement that didn't strain the body, presence that didn't grip the moment. But the deepest practice was this: noticing where he was forcing and choosing to soften instead. In conversation, he stopped trying to prove he was smart. He just listened. The exhaustion of performing disappeared. In work, he stopped trying to control every detail. He did what was his to do, then let go. The anxiety of over-responsibility dissolved. In relationships, he stopped trying to make people understand him. He just spoke his truth and allowed space for theirs. The resentment of being misunderstood faded. Month by month, year by year, something shifted. He didn't suddenly have more energy. He simply stopped bleeding it. And what was left, what had always been there, was enough. More than enough. His eyes cleared. His movements became light. People started traveling to the mountains just to be near him, because he carried something they'd forgotten was possible. Peace that didn't require perfection. He wasn't trying to be peaceful. He'd just stopped fighting himself. Wei Boyang eventually wrote the Cantong Qi, one of the oldest alchemical texts in existence. In it, he didn't write about sleeping more or eating better. He wrote about the art of non-forcing, about conserving the life force you already have instead of desperately searching for more, about the profound rest that comes not from doing nothing, but from stopping the war with yourself. Here's what Wei Boyang understood that most people never will. You're not tired because your life is hard. You're tired because you're living against the grain of your own nature. You're forcing when you should yield, pushing when you should pause, performing when you should simply exist. Every time you say yes when your body whispers no, you drain Jing. Every time you scroll when you need silence, you scatter qi. Every time you pretend you're fine when you're not, you dim your shen. These aren't small things. They're the constant, invisible hemorrhage that leaves you running on empty no matter how much you sleep. The ancient secret isn't a supplement. It isn't a routine. It's this: stop forcing your life. Start feeling it. When you're tired, rest without guilt. When you're energized, move without restraint. When something isn't working, stop without shame. The current is already there. You don't have to create it. You just have to stop swimming against it. Wei Boyang spent the last 40 years of his life in those mountains, and witnesses said he never looked tired. Not because he did nothing, but because everything he did came from alignment instead of violence. The waterfall doesn't get exhausted carving stone. The tree doesn't get tired growing toward light. And you won't either once you stop treating your life like something you have to conquer. Your exhaustion isn't a weakness, it's a message. And the message is this: stop fighting, start flowing. The energy you're searching for, you've had it all along. You've just been too busy forcing your way through life to feel it.